Stand by to fall in, Polk County. This is today's veteran. Hello and welcome, and on behalf of everyone at the Polk County Office of Veteran Services, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart, and on this installment of Today's Veteran, we talk healing arts with Jane Waters and Polly Loeber from Arts Ensemble about their efforts to help Polk County veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. But we start off today's show with a look at how the Department of Veterans Affairs leads the country in hepatitis screening, testing, treatment, research, and prevention. Joining us in studio is Dr. Yasmeen Morano. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkhart. Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now at James Haley.
Right. Well, great. Well, thanks for having me. I've been working in the VA system actually since 1999, and it's really been an honor to serve our veterans. I started with hepatitis C specifically in about 2015 here at James A. Haley VA. My training in Hep C has been pretty much until since 2011. And I got to Florida because we have a lot of need for hepatitis C and other infectious diseases. So that's how I came to James A. Haley, and I've really enjoyed working there and innovating with the physicians and staff there as well.
Well, good. We're glad you're here. Tell us, what is hepatitis C?
Sure. So hepatitis C is a blood-borne virus, and it's spread by blood and body fluids, unsafe tattoos. People who have used IV drugs even once can have hepatitis C. The blood supply used to not be screened, so our veterans who are in the theater in Vietnam and other areas would be at risk for hepatitis C. Also, our hepatitis C is a virus, but it can be cured, and so that's why I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk with you to kind of get rid of hepatitis C in our veteran population.
Okay. You see ads on TV.
Yes.
If you're over or baby boomer,
right,
you could have it and should be tested.
Right.
How do you test?
Yeah, very easy. So in the James A. Haley Veterans Hospital, we have a blood test. It's called a hepatitis C antibody. Very simple test. Veterans can go to their primary care provider and ask for a screen and go to the lab, and there it is. There's also rapid testing available. So we're trying to work that in, but in the private sector, there's also rapid testing. Only takes 20 minutes. It's a finger stick. So very easy to see if someone has hepatitis C.
As a veteran who uses the VA medical system, do I have to ask for it, or when I get blood work for something else, is that included?
Sure, I would ask for it. There's been a very strong campaign among all providers to screen and be proactive for screening veterans. So we have teams of folks who are screening records and making sure everyone's gotten screened for hepatitis C. And back when I was at the VA up in Vermont, there was actually a reminder that all the providers would screen for it. But I would recommend asking your provider, just in case, but yes, there is a very strong campaign to get all veterans screened. And we actually keep track of all the veterans, making sure everyone's gotten screened as well. So it's a very organized operation to try to screen and treat people for hepatitis C.
So when I was at the VA last Wednesday, I went and did blood work.
Yes.
Unless that was asked for, it's not
correct.
Included?
So within the VA system, it's not considered needing consent. So yes, it can be added to your labs, but certainly a good, doctor or provider-patient relationship. We like to talk about the tests that we want to get for our veterans. So to answer your question, it would not usually be in your routine lab. So your routine labs for your provider would be usually a blood count and a metabolic panel and looking for kind of electrolytes and cell counts. But usually we don't screen for viruses unless we talk with the veteran about it. So that's why I think it's a good idea to mention it with your provider, but the providers also are getting a lot of education on the VA administrative and pharmacy side to screen our veterans. So it's kind of a team approach, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it's not automatically included, if that also makes sense.
That
Yes.
does make sense.
Okay.
What are the effects of hepatitis?
Absolutely.
What does it
I'm
affect?
glad you asked, because we have a lot of veterans say, I've had hepatitis C for years. Why are you treating me now? Why are you calling me? So hepatitis C is a slow-moving virus. It takes about 10 to 20 years for us to see the effects of hepatitis C. The liver can get very fibrotic, meaning like a sponge that can no longer absorb liquid. So the liver stops filtrating the blood. So toxins can build up in the body. People get swelling. In some cases, people can actually get liver cancer called hepatocellular carcinoma, or HCC. So what we're trying to do with our veteran population is preventing those problems. If I may, one of the most #1 cause of liver transplantation in the United States, liver transplantation, was actually hepatitis C up until very, very recently. And hepatitis C with alcohol, heavy alcohol use, can kind of speed up the acceleration to liver disease. So we really want to have our veterans into care, even if they know they've had hepatitis C and they're fine, they don't know why they need to be treated. It's really a good idea to prevent future disease.
Tell our audience, what does the liver do for you?
Yes, great question. So the liver is a filter. It filters the blood of toxins. It actually also produces, when people cut themselves, platelets in the body will kind of heal up and make a scar or a scab. The liver produces those platelets. Also the liver is really important in metabolism. It stores sugars. So it does a lot of things. So if someone's liver doesn't work, the toxins can't be filtered. It's kind of like a backed up pipe. So people start having fluid buildup. People start having problems clotting, so they bleed. They can bleed from their esophagus, their food tube. They can bleed in their intestinal area. They can get big bellies, right? People who have liver problems can have large bellies, called ascites. So it's basically like clogged up pipes or fibrosed. And there's a term called cirrhosis, which veterans should know, and that is severe fibrosis, and that's when the liver stops working when it's cirrhosed. So that's what the liver does. It's a very, very important organ, but it can kind of come back to life. So with treatment of hep C, we like to see the liver function tests normalize. And that's the beautiful part of hep C treatment, is that people can be cured, and it's almost like they never had hepatitis C.
So some of the symptoms, again, you went over.
Sure.
The
sure.
ascites?
Symptoms of liver problems, ascites. So ascites is a kind of a fancy term for fluid buildup. So ascites, fluid in the abdomen. So if veterans feel like they have fluid in the abdomen, sometimes an ultrasound of the liver will show fluid. Sometimes swelling of the legs or the ankles. With severe liver problems, people will start seeing more bleeding than normal and bruising.
What about jaundice?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Now you usually
jaundice.
know that in a baby.
Yes. So that is because the bilirubin levels are high. So the toxins we were talking about, bilirubin is one of those toxins. Bilirubin is a byproduct of all of our red blood cells when they decompose and they get turned over. So exactly. So yellowing of the skin, yellowing of the eyes, called sclera icterus is a fancy name for it, but basically the whites of the eyes will get yellow. Absolutely, that's a sign of liver failure. That's very severe disease. So that comes a little bit later when the bilirubin levels are very high.
And you mentioned Vietnam.
Yes.
Is that due to the herbicide exposure? Or?
I don't think it's the pesticides, even though Agent Orange does have its own neurological sequelae for sure. No, I think the bloodborne aspect of hepatitis C, two main venues. One, transfusions in the war theater, in country transfusions before we knew that hepatitis C was going to be a problem. And also air gun vaccines. I always ask my veterans if they've received vaccines, because when veterans are lined up, some of that blood can shoot back into that air gun vaccine mechanism and can spread from person to person. So that's another risk factor for our veterans in the field. Also, if veterans had tattoos or piercing in the theater that weren't sterile, we've had veterans who have been in an outpost and they've only, had one razor and they've, had to share razors to shave and so that also has been risk factors. So definitely our veterans are higher risk for hepatitis C just through what they're doing but we've obviously worked on that to try to minimize risk now for our modern veterans, but in our Vietnam era, our Korea veterans, we didn't know about hepatitis C as much then, so that's why they're higher risk.
Tell us about dialysis.
Yes.
What effect or how would that work
Sure.
with hepatitis?
So dialysis is a method of mechanical filtration of the blood. It substitutes the kidney's role. The kidney is also a very important filter in the body. So the dialysis will take care of some of the toxins in the body, but it will not make up for a failing liver.
What about someone who works in taking blood or
yes,
something like that?
Great question.
What's the rate?
Absolutely. So hepatitis C can be transmitted through finger sticks, and the exact. I'm so sorry. I have to come back with the exact percentage, but there's three main diseases that someone would have to be worried about if they're called occupational exposure to a bloodborne virus like a finger stick. One would be hepatitis C, one would be hepatitis B, and one would be HIV. And we screen all our veterans for that when we enroll them in Hep C care. HIV is actually the least likely to be transmitted. Hepatitis C and B are actually very likely to be transmitted. So we try to vaccinate, obviously, anyone who's in that line of work with A and B vaccines, and we do vaccinate our veterans. Hepatitis C does not have a vaccine. It can be cured, but there's no vaccine yet. They've been working on it, but it's a tricky virus. So to answer your question, yes, there are specific percentages of risk of transmission of all of those viruses.
How is it cured?
Yes, so this is very exciting. So I should start by, we have very exciting medicines. Veterans probably heard, I'm not being paid by anybody, but Harvoni, Epclusa, Zephyr, you've seen advertisements. Mm-hmm. Those are called direct-acting antivirals. So those medicines are combination medicines of two active antivirals, and they will target the hepatitis C specifically. Why that's exciting, and a lot of veterans will tell me, I've heard of hepatitis C treatment and ribavirin and interferon, it was horrible, and yes, it was horrible. It took about 52 weeks back, even in 2010, 2009, and people would get flu-like symptoms and get really sick, but those days are over, and that's what we want to tell our veterans, is that now we have new modern agents that can work in little as 12 weeks, and because they target the virus, and use a military kind of metaphor, it's more of a sniper and not a shotgun, right? So it targets the virus directly and doesn't have a lot of side effects or collateral damage. It's very, very targeted. So our veterans have less side effects, they have better cure rates, and they don't need that much time on them. So it's a very exciting era, and a lot of our veterans, majority of them are so excited about it.
Tell us where you get treated.
Sure, I'm glad you asked, because a lot of veterans have that same question. So essentially, it's very easy. Veterans contact their primary care provider. Their primary care provider makes sure the veteran is screened, and they refer to a hepatitis C provider, which would be an infectious disease doctor or a gastrointestinal doctor. And the where is exciting because veterans can be treated on-site in Lakeland Clinic, at Pasco, and at James A. Haley. So we all work as a team to, how do I say, work with the veteran's schedule. So any day of the week, we even have Saturday clinics. So very easy to get referred, and we'll get the veteran right into care.
Dr. Morano, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
We appreciate all the information, and we're excited too.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
For more information on the VA hospital's efforts in the fight against hepatitis, you can look it up on the web at www.hepatitis.va.gov. We will be back with more of today's veteran right after this.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Captain Joshua Brandon.
Bob Murphy.
Kate Weber.
Jerry Reed. Will Sanchez.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
I thought I was losing my mind.
Everything just fell apart.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
I felt isolated. I felt alone.
And I made a choice. I made a choice to go seek treatment.
Treatment has definitely helped me. Treatment has turned my life completely around.
It was like the new beginning for me.
If you're tired of dealing and living the way you are right now, then do something about it.
Quit beating yourself up and go ahead and help. You know, that's basically all I can tell you. But you know you need help, so go get it.
Welcome back to today's Veteran. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart. Arts Ensemble Education Foundation is an arts incubator that provides developmental assistance to artists, art organizations, or creative enterprises in early stages of development or change. Their latest program provides creative therapy to veterans with PTSD. Joining us in studio is Jane Waters and Polly Loeber from Arts Ensemble. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start off and tell our audience about Arts Ensemble and what it is, how it got started, and what's going on.
Arts Ensemble Education Foundation is an arts incubator, and we began about 12 years ago in the community of Eloise. We were in an old citrus factory, and we literally took over 1/3 of the factory and made it a residential art studio. And from there, we grew programs like our healing arts programs, which Arts for Vets is part of that program. Also art in public places. We frequently lend artwork to some of our government and county facilities as well as medical facilities. And then of course our community arts education programs that we do with youth.
What is considered art? Is it all painting or is it other venues?
No, there's many different mediums, and you know, with regard to what we do, it is highly visual arts. We do not do a lot of performing arts, although we have some amazing organizations in our community that focus their attention to the performing arts. We do a little bit in the way of like guitar lessons and that for some of our students, but by and large we focus on visual arts and the disciplines of that.
Okay. Polly, tell us what your involvement is. What do you do?
Well, thanks for having me be here. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I joined Jane in Arts Ensemble about a year and a half ago. And what I've been doing primarily with the Arts for Vets program is more or less tailgating along with one of our artists down in Lake Wales, where we create a very safe space for the families and the veterans to allow themselves to create. We have ceramics class down there, and it just allows the families and the veterans to, again, have a very safe and creative space to allow themselves to be able to use their creativity through the use of their hands. And more or less, my interaction is building rapport with them and allowing myself to be able to provide any additional resources if necessary to the families and to the veterans themselves. The relationships are the most important that I have found being able to be down there. Being the overall, it's just a very powerful experience in and of itself. Being able to see just the ease that they have that overcomes them, and the process that they're going through is amazing. It's like almost like watching a child discover something new for the first time, and you can see the glow in their eyes. It's just fascinating to be able to see that experience from start to finish. And like I said, the relationships have been the most important. It's more like a family now.
You mentioned family. How important is it for the Veterans Healing Program for involvement with their family?
Extremely important. Most of the participants that we have in the Lake Wales program specifically, a lot of them are in treatment themselves. They have counselors or therapists that they see on the regular basis because they're the secondary candidates with regards to dealing with some of the issues that their husbands or spouses or partners are dealing with. And they need support as well. And that is crucial in the dynamic in the family of being able to provide support and be able to take care of themselves. That's ideally the most important thing, that being able to have those supportive services is.
Okay. You mentioned where the program started, but it is, would you say county-wide or?
Oh, we're absolutely county-wide at this point. We have a program was sort of our pilot program really at the Lakeland Vet Center, and that's been ongoing now for about 2.5 years. We were afforded the opportunity through a grant through the Florida Veterans Foundation to expand the program on the east side of the county, and it gave us the ability to open 3 new centers. One is at Outer Space Gallery in Winter Haven, the Lake Wells Post 71 American Legion, which is where Polly is talking about the ceramics program, and then also the American Legion and VFW posts that are in Winter Haven. So we literally have 5 classes that are kind of ongoing all the time now. The east side of the county, however, it's our newest program. And when I say newest program, they're all our newest programs on the east side of the county. And again, that fund that we were given made it possible for us to open those. So we're watching those grow, and it's a slow process in getting these programs here because, as Polly mentioned, they have to be safe environments. We're dealing with men and women who aren't certain that this is what they want to do when they get there, and so it's very interesting to watch a guy come into class who is dealing with some stuff and he lets it go in the middle of clay. And about the 3rd class in, I think is when they start to realize that it's working in a different way than they thought it would. I think they're forced to go there by their wives, I'm just saying. But by about the 3rd class, they start to see the difference of being able to let it go for 2 hours through the arts. So.
Okay. You talk about funding source. Where do you get your funding? What kind of special programs or things do you have to raise funds?
Well, we are reliant on grants and private donors. We do have an event coming up on September 24th at Tanner's Lakeside. It is a flip-flop margarita party, and that is a fundraiser specifically for the Arts for Vets program.
Is Jimmy Buffett going to be there?
No, but the Barefoot Man's going to be there, which is kind of the comedian version of Jimmy Buffett. It's phenomenal. We happened to get him by way of him being at another function down south.
So how will funds be raised at this Arts for Vets event?
Donations. It's a free event to come to. Tanner's has generously offered to give us a portion of what they raise at the event through sales. And then, of course, we'll be doing some fun things like selling tiki hut locations and, the best flip-flops contest, fun stuff.
Okay. Give us the date on that again.
September 24th, Sunday afternoon.
Okay. Tell us, Polly, about interaction with the participants and how important that is for them.
Well, like I said before, the most important part of any type of relationship is trust and creating a safe place for people to come to. And our location specifically in Lake Wales, it was, I believe, an old Ford plant down where the post is. And so we're tucked away in the back, and we've created this wonderful environment for people to come and spend 2 hours a week. And most of all, having them come in. Our group started off with 1 person and is now up to 8 or 9 participants, and it's just grown beautifully and just emerged into a life of itself. And having them come in, it's just the relationship building is the most important part. The trust, the impact that for me, I learned from them. And just being there on a consistent basis and showing up is just an awesome experience to have. And it's very intimate and personal, and they're allowed to be able to, like Jane mentioned, to release what's ever going on the inside out into clay, and allowing them to put aside whatever is going on. One of the artists that was Miss Nancy that's there, who teaches the class, mentioned last week, I wasn't able to go, but she mentioned that they didn't want to leave. They said, I don't want to go home yet. So hearing those kinds of things, seeing not the progression in their work, because that's not what it's about, but being able to have that reflection upon themselves and be able to see what they've created goes a long way. And it starts small, and we're taking baby steps. And like I mentioned before, the trust is so important. It's more like a family. And we have one gentleman with us he's about 90 years old, and he has some mental cognitive problems, but he's there every week. And I'm his assistant, and it's just amazing to see how he does his work, and it's just breathtaking to see all of them come together.
Jane, what do we need? We need more participants, more sites, more instructors?
You know what? Always we need more funding. I mean, that's just the bottom line, because with that comes more materials and more instructors. And I think that the numbers are going to continue to grow. At the Lakeland Vet Center, again, that was our pilot program for our organization. Arts for Vets is not new. This has been going on for far longer than I'm going to be able to mention, I'm sure. But for our organization, that program being the pilot, we often have a waiting list. And so we know that these programs are going to grow. We need funding. We always need funding for this. Being a nonprofit organization, that's definitely the bottom line. I think that what we're going to see happen in the next year, our goal at least, is to see our programs just expand and reach so that we can provide things like life writing and some of the other arts that we know that our vets would benefit from. When we began this program, our initial thought was we wanted to reach out to those that had been diagnosed with PTSD. As the program launched and we started seeing their spouses come to the program, we realized that we needed to be a program that was all inclusive of not only the vets but also their family members. So in reach and growth and participation in those numbers, I would like to see more of their family members come in, the ones that are most greatly affected by what's going on with their loved one. So I hope I answered that question to the best I could, because as an executive director, I'll always say that funding is the bottom line to the success of any program, and from that we can grow.
Well, listen, we're out of time. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Polly, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
If you need more information about the Arts Ensemble Education Foundation PTSD Healing Arts for Veterans, give them a call at 863-293-2700 or look them up on the web at www.artsensemblehealingarts.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Today's Veteran. I want to thank our guests today, Dr. Jamie Morano and Jane Waters and Polly Loeber, but most of all, I want to thank you for joining us. Remember, for help and information regarding claims, benefits, and services available to veterans and their families, call the Polk County Veterans Service Office at 863-534-5220 or log on to the Polk County website at polk-county.net. I'm your host, Tim Kirkhart, and we will see you next month.